All right, welcome everyone. This is John Corcoran, and we're going to run through a little presentation here on using follow-ups to grow relationships. And I'm joined here by Brian Pesson. Did I say that right, Brian?
You did, John.
Great. Brian, thanks for joining us. And so let's just talk a little bit about follow-ups right at the get-go, because I'll just share my experience. As your network of people grows, it becomes very difficult to manage all those people and to communicate with them regularly. And I was looking at LinkedIn the other day. I've got almost 2,000 contacts on LinkedIn. I'm sure many people watching this probably have many more than that. Or even if you have over a couple hundred, it's just very difficult to keep in touch with people. So that's the challenge. And there obviously are a lot of different CRM providers out there, but one that I've been working with is Contactually, and it's really been helpful with managing those follow-ups. And so I asked Brian to join us here today to show a few tools you can use, which really I think you can apply no matter how you approach it, whether you decide to use Contactually or not. I actually am biased. I think it's a great product, and they've got some great starter packages. So, Brian, thanks for joining us, and let's talk about following up with people.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks so much for having me, John. Really excited to share a little bit of knowledge and information with you this afternoon.
Great. So, why don't we I'll just turn it over to you, and then I'll just interject with different questions as we go along.
Yeah, please do. Thank you for all of you, to all of you who are watching this video. My name is Brian, and I'm the marketing manager at Contactually, which is the best CRM for professionals in relationship-based businesses. So what are we going to cover today? So I'm going to share with you a 4-step framework for staying relevant with your most important contacts. Now, before we get started with the framework, I need to let you know the best way to stay relevant with the people in your network is to follow up with them on a regular basis. And this is something that I think a lot of us know and a lot of us try to do, but at the end of the day, we tend to fall short on these efforts because it's really easy to let the people who aren't right in front of you at that time slip through the cracks. So why do we need to follow up with people? First, we need to do it to gain potential business opportunities. And you're going to get those business opportunities by building strong and meaningful relationships with the people in your network that matter the most. And by following up with them on a regular basis, you're showing them that you consider that relationship to be really strong and meaningful.
And I'll just interject and say it shows that you're consistent and reliable by doing that.
Exactly. People are going to be more inclined to work with you. They're going to trust you more. They're going to think more highly of you. The list really goes on and on. So if you don't follow up with people, you're not going to stay top of mind with them. And that's a problem because if you don't stay top of mind with people, you're going to miss out on opportunities for revenue and referrals for your business.
Yeah, and I've given lots of examples of this before, but just one quick anecdote. There was a real estate agent that had referred a number of cases to me over a 3 or 4 month period, and I realized I was looking back at my contacts. I realized I hadn't contacted her in like 9 months or so, and what do you know? I hadn't gotten any business from her in about 9 months or so. And if I'd been using Contactually at the time, I'm sure I would have managed that relationship better. So just little things like that, just making sure to follow up with people makes such a big difference.
Exactly. If you can't remember to follow up with someone and you ultimately don't do that, then the level of mind share that you're able to maintain with that particular person is going to fall lower and lower over time. So now that we know
Right.
this, we're going to use this 4-step framework to send timely, personal, and relevant follow-ups to your top email and social media contacts. And we'll show you some online tools that'll help you make this process easier and more automatic.
I think that's helpful because I think one thing people are worried about is making sure that they don't seem like they're spamming someone.
Definitely. And one thing that we really strive for at Contactually is to build relationships authentically. And I'll touch a little bit more on that as we go throughout the framework.
Okay,
So
good.
without further ado, let's start with step 1. Make it personal. You need to find personal opportunities to reconnect with your contacts. And by doing that, you're going to show that you're in tune with their interests, what's going on in their lives, that you really care about them, so on and so forth. So how do you do that? First, take a look at major life events. Has your contact had a birthday lately? What's going on with their kids? Did you see pictures of their family vacation or a bachelor party trip on social media? Or if we want to look, in the professional sphere, we can take a look at things like job changes and promotions, as well as appearances of your contact's company in the news. Now, one pro tip I'd like to share with you: don't be creepy. Don't overstep your bounds when it comes to mentioning these, for example, major life events. If you've met a person once or twice at a conference and your relationship has been strictly professional, it might not be the most appropriate thing to go talking about the family trip and the pictures of their kids that they just posted on Facebook. So make sure that you're keeping that in mind as you're going through the framework.
Use good sense, yeah.
Exactly.
I noticed LinkedIn makes this easy because these days now it says if someone has a job change, you kind of get prompted about that.
Yep, and I'll show you this in just a bit, but Contactually will actually pull those new job changes in, and we'll display those for you right on your dashboard. So those are
Oh,
some
that's
really
helpful.
great opportunities for you to connect with your network in a really meaningful yet still professional manner.
Mhm.
So step two, deliver value through content. You've heard time and time and again, and it's still true that good content is king. If you're sharing good content with the people in your network, they're undoubtedly going to think more highly of you. When you are sharing content with the people in your network, keep it related to their interests, hobbies, and career. Then you have to make sure that even if the content that you're sharing is relevant to their interests and hobbies, that it's high quality content that they're going to appreciate receiving. Step three, deliver value through your network. So, a really great way to add value to your network is by introducing people that are like minded. Perhaps you're trying to strike up a friendship or put two people together that might enjoy going out to grab a cup of coffee or a drink. Or perhaps you're introducing two people who could benefit from one another professionally, who have complementary services, who could work together on a project moving forward. Now, it's really important to keep in mind that much like content, people only want introductions to other people that are relevant. So you really have to hone in on industry and interests and hobbies. And just like with content, you're going to have to use a little bit of judgment to make sure that that introduction is going to be relevant and
I
mutually
love this
beneficial to
tip.
both of the parties.
Yeah, I love this tip. I mean, this is such a great thing. I've made introductions to people where, if they hit it off, they are so grateful to you. And well, first of all, I find that sometimes it takes a little effort. You need to maybe email someone in advance and say, "Hey, I'd like to introduce you to this other person. Would you like me to do an introduction?" Other times, sometimes I'll just go ahead. I know that they'll hit it off, or it's a good connection, or I know they're looking for a certain kind of connection, and so I'll just email both of them. But I think this is a great suggestion.
Definitely. And anecdotally, what I've seen is when I've made introductions that resonate really well, those people will tend to return the favor and will introduce me to people who I might enjoy grabbing a drink with or who could, help me advance my career.
Right.
So, all in all, a really great practice. And then the last step is step four, systematize. Wash, rinse, and repeat. Ultimately, managing a manual follow up system is really hard. There are a ton of
Hmm.
different products and websites that will claim to help you with this goal, but at the end of the day, a lot of them are time consuming. They still require you to manually enter a lot of the data that you want to get into that system, and your most important contacts are still likely to slip through the cracks. So, by implementing a system, you're making sure that you're held accountable for following up with the right person at the right time with really great content. And that's how you're going to generate additional referrals and repeat business opportunities that'll really impact your income and happiness levels in the long run.
Yep. So true.
So, how should we systematize? And this is where Contactually enters. Contactually, like I said before, is the best CRM for professionals and relationship based businesses. At a very high level, Contactually is going to help you follow up with the right person at the right time with really great content. We do that by sucking in all of your contacts from email, social media, phone, and a couple of other software providers with which we integrate so that you have all of your contact data in one central location. So,
Now,
gone
this
are the,
was Oh, sorry, Brian. I just want to say this was the game changer for me because I always resisted doing some kind of CRM program because I didn't want to have to like go and import a bunch of information and or type in new information. And I loved how you could just enter your email addresses and your LinkedIn, your Facebook, and all that kind of stuff, and it just creates profiles, merge profiles based on all that information.
exactly. And I'm going to show you a little bit how that merging works right now. So,
Great.
let's say that we went ahead and we sent an email to Michael. Michael, we have his school email address on file here, and I also had his mobile and his home phone numbers in my mobile phone book. So when I linked my phone book to Contactually, it brought that information in.
Hmm.
When Michael went in and replied to the email that I sent him, he did it from his Gmail. So Contactually automatically added that Gmail address to his profile as well.
Hmm.
Then using both of those email addresses, we went ahead and we found his different social media profiles. You'll see that on the right-hand side of the screen now. And we were also able to
Yeah.
pull in his profile picture as well as his job title and company from LinkedIn. All of this is really great contextual information that will help you better identify who this person is and what your relationship is like. And you'll also see in this section over here that Contactually's automatically started tracking communications for me.
Hmm. God,
Next,
all this is so time consuming entering all this stuff if you did it manually.
exactly. And that's why we try to take all that manual data entry out of the equation for you, because we realize that when we do that, you can spend time focusing on the things that really matter, like actually building the relationships, rather than simply typing in contact information, because that's not fun for anyone.
No.
So you'll see in the next step, it also Contactually is also able to pull in information from your contact's email signatures. So you'll see that we have a home address as well as a location. And those are things that Michael included in his email signature that I didn't yet have in my contact profile for him. So Contactually automatically extracted that information and dropped it directly into the contact profile for me. And you'll see in the communication section over here that Contactually has gone ahead and has automatically tracked additional communications for me. And then you'll see that thanks to our mobile applications currently available for iPhone and just about to launch for Android, that Contactually is also able to help me track my incoming phone calls as well as the text messages that I send. And we'll do the
Can
same
you
thing for your
actually click on
outgoing
that and
calls as
see
well.
the text messages as well?
Not right now. At this point,
Okay.
it's just going to log the text message for you so that you'll know exactly when you spoke to that person last.
Okay. But
But
at
that's a
some point
good
in the
point.
future.
When you look at the
Yeah.
email conversations over here, if you click on the subject line, you'll be able to see the content of that email directly in the contact profile. So you're not going to have to spend time searching for it in your inbox and figuring out what you
Yeah.
talked about last.
Yeah. Now, what about like Facebook messages or Twitter messages?
So we do integrate with social media. We integrate with Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And we will be able to show you all of your Facebook messages and chats, your Twitter at replies and DMs. And with LinkedIn, if you're sending LinkedIn mails from Contactually, we're able to track those and show you what you talked about there as well.
Okay. Cool.
So now let's head over to contactually.com and I'll show you a little bit about what the site has to offer.
Okay.
So
Cool.
now we've gone through how Contactually will bring all of your contacts into one place, keep the records updated, merge any duplicates, so on and so forth. So now that we have our contacts in the system, the next thing that we need to do is create our system of buckets. And buckets are going to be your primary categorization method for your contacts in Contactually. Think of them as groups or segments or whatever else you'd like to call them, but we feel that calling it buckets makes it a little bit more fun.
Yeah, and I was confused by this at first. I had created all these different categories that didn't make any sense. And then I talked to one of your colleagues, and she recommended doing it by follow-up, the amount of time you wanted to follow up. So like every 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 6 months, year. And that made a lot more sense to me because then it was in my mind, it was based on the people that were really high priority I wanted to follow up with more frequently, and the people who are less of a priority but still I wanted to remain in touch with, I could do every 6 months or once a year.
Exactly. So once you've created your bucket titles, the next thing that you're going to have to do is decide how often you'd like to be reminded to follow up with the people in those buckets. So you see, for this particular bucket, I want to follow up with those people at least once every 90 days. Now, Contactually will take that group rule and will apply it to each individual in that particular bucket. And because Contactually is automatically tracking all of my communications with these people, it knows exactly when I last spoke to them. So that if I go beyond that 90-day period, Contactually will automatically remind me to reconnect with that person because I've gone too long without doing it on my own accord. So just quickly, to get a contact into a bucket, you can simply drag and drop, or you can play this neat game that we've created called the bucket game.
This is
With the
fun.
with the bucket game, we'll create these contextual flashcards for 50 of your contacts at a time. Because for those of you like me who have hundreds or thousands of contacts in your database, dragging and dropping them one by one seems really tedious, stressful, and time consuming. So we'll
Hmm.
create these flashcards with your contact's name, company, email address, how many times you've communicated with them, when the last point of contact was, as well as the subject line of your most recent online communications. Then we'll display your buckets at the bottom of the screen. And in order to put a contact into a particular bucket, simply click on the bucket or select the keystroke associated with that bucket. And you'll find that in no time at all, you're going to be able to quickly and easily get these contacts into the correct bucket, and you're even going to have a good time while you're doing so. So now let's
Yeah,
head
it
over to the
was a
dashboard.
brilliant idea.
Thanks. So, like I said before, when you go beyond one of the time thresholds that you've set for a group of contacts that you then apply to that individual, will automatically remind you to reconnect with the right person at the right time in order to stay top of mind and relevant so that you will be the first professional that they think of when they or someone else that they know needs your services. So when you log into Contactually, you'll land on your dashboard, which is going to be one of your primary interaction points with the site. This is where we're going to show you all the people that you need to follow up with for the day, anyone that you need to congratulate due to a job change, as well as any actions that you've self-scheduled.
Now, let me ask you a question here, Brian, because I see on that first contact there, Martin Henk, at the top it says, or to the right of it, it says last spoke on 8/12 to 8/22/12, and then Team Zvi, which is the name of your CEO, last spoke on February 25th. Is that integrated with other contractually employees, or is that like a manual note you wrote in?
No, so what anyone can do really is perform a professional team on Contactually. When you do that, you'll invite your teammates or colleagues to join, and then each individual will choose which buckets of contacts he or she would like to share with the rest of the group. So
Ah,
Martin,
okay.
because he's one of our professional partners, Svi and I both have him in a bucket that we've chosen to share with the rest of the team. So Contactually can also tell me who on my team last spoke to that particular contact. Now,
Oh,
if you go one
interesting.
step below to Blake, he's not in anyone else's shared bucket, so you don't see that anyone else on the team has spoke with him.
I see. Okay. Okay. So that's interesting. So if you have a group of employees or sales professionals or something, you can cooperate that way, coordinate.
Exactly. We make it really
Yeah.
easy for you to share contact data and communication histories across the team. But just so you
Hmm.
all know, it is an explicit permissioning process, so you'll have a really strong hold on the contacts that you share and the contacts that you keep private.
Okay.
So to follow up with someone, I can either do it from my Gmail or my Outlook or whatever tools I'm already using. And because Contactually is directly connected to all of my accounts at the server level, Contactually is going to be able to track it for me regardless of where I send it from. But for the purpose of this, let's go ahead and follow up from Contactually. And I can do that by pressing the blue follow up button over here. Now you'll see when I do that I have some contextual information on the right-hand side of the screen, which I'll look at first before following up. So we'll pull in Derek's name, job title, and company from LinkedIn, and display links to any of the social media profiles that we can find for that particular contact based on their name and email address. Underneath the social data, you'll see your recent conversations. And again, to see the content of one of the conversations, all you need to do is click on the subject line, and that conversation will appear directly in line.
And that's really helpful to be able to do that. Remind yourself of what you talked about last.
Definitely. It's going to save you a ton of time, and it's going to help ensure that your follow ups are relevant and timely. So now that I'm ready to follow up with Derek, first I'll decide where I want the follow up to go to. As you can see, I have an email address and his Twitter account on file, so I'll go ahead and I'll stick with the email for this. But you can follow up with your contacts on social media directly from Contactually.
Hmm,
Next,
interesting.
I'll go ahead and type my message. I can either go ahead and type something from scratch, or I could use an email template that I have on file to really help expedite the process. So I'll go ahead and I'll use this just following up sample template that I have saved. And you'll see that when I select the recipient, it automatically personalizes the templated message with key personal points of information. So you'll see here, it's automatically inputted Derek's first name, the month that we last spoke, and Contactually knows that because it's automatically tracking my communications for me, as well as his company. So you'll
Hmm.
see that after selecting the template, it looks like I sat down and wrote this really personal, engaging, relevant message when really Contactually did most of the heavy lifting for me. So definitely
Yeah.
take advantage of email templates. They're a really great tool to help you follow up efficiently and relevantly with your contacts at scale. So when I'm ready to follow up with Derek, there are a couple of options that I'll check off at the bottom, like tracking any links that he clicks on to see if he's engaging with the emails that I'm sending him. BCCing me if for some reason Contactually is unable to save the message to my sent folder, which most of the time we're able to do. And then under the send box, I can have Contactually notify me if my contact hasn't responded to my message in a set number of days. So that's really it's a really useful feature to make sure that you're getting the responses to your outbound messages, to make sure that your efforts are really being heard. So if I wanted to send this to Derek, I could go ahead and press this green send button, or I could delay the sending by a pre-specified time interval or by selecting a specific date and time. But I'm not going to go ahead and follow up with Derek quite yet, so I'll go ahead and exit out for now. Now, is there anything else that you want me to go over before we sign off, John?
I think you covered it pretty well. Let me think. Um, I see on the right side. Oh, one thing I was going to ask about with that follow-up template thing there.
Sure.
One fear might be that maybe you use the same template twice or three times in a row. Is that possible? Like, send the same email to the person?
So in theory, if you're selecting the same template, you would be able to see that. But if we go back over here, you'll see all of the recent conversations that you've had with the contact on the right-hand side of the screen. And you're able
Okay.
to save subject lines with your template. So you'll be able to see, for example, if I used my "this article made me think of you" template, because
Yeah.
I would see that in the recent conversations over there. So that'll help eliminate
Okay.
duplicates.
And then what about that not sure what to say to Martin in the top there?
So this is going to bring you some tips for staying in touch with Martin, and we gathered those tips from our customer gurus who help make sure that all of our users are having a really great experience with Contactually. So one thing I definitely point out is this template library, which you'll see in the second bullet point over here.
Hmm.
If you go to our email template library, you'll be able to add a wide variety of email templates that our most active and most successful users have had success with their own network. You can browse them by category on the left-hand side, and then you can go ahead and select specific templates that you'd like to add to your own account. So we really do
Hmm.
help you provide some really great content when you're getting in touch with those key prospects.
So it's kind of like you're crowdsourcing this because this is coming from all your users and what's worked well for them.
Yep, definitely. So some of it
Hmm.
we've created ourselves in house, but a lot of them were crowdsourced from our most successful users.
Wow, very cool. Cool. Well, great, Brian. This is really interesting, and I feel like I'm still just have reached the tip of the iceberg here with using Contactually, and I've been using it for a number of months now. So I appreciate you taking the time to explain all this.
Absolutely. And if there's anything that you would like clarified, I highly recommend taking a look at our training site, which is at training.contactually.com. We have a 20-minute on-demand webinar there, which will go through the product uh, and all of the features that you need to know about. We'll offer specific videos that demonstrate how to use some of our most robust features. And then at the bottom of the page, you'll have some great resources like ebooks, white papers, and more that I definitely recommend checking out. There's some great content there.
Okay, great. Well, thanks very much, Brian.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me on the line, John. It was great getting to share Contactually with you today.